Welcome to the Acceptable Accuracy Podcast. I am your host, Philip, and I'm joined today by my newly minted host, Kyle, though I think we may have decided just to continue to call you guest host. I don't know. Maybe we'll go back and forth.
Ghost is a good nickname. That's not too pretentious with the joke, but
host not at all.
Just not as fun.
Yeah, and you have to change your jersey too. So that's the problem here. It's like, it was that way, and now it's not anymore. So how do you handle that?
I don't know.
There's
just no way to know. We'll just have to figure it
out. We are joined by a returning guest, Casey. Do you want to say hello?
Hey, how's it going?
All right. And today we have, all of these episodes are special, but I think this is an extra special episode because this was a first for all three of us.
Yes.
Kyle, do you want to tell our wonderful guests what our podcast is going to be about today?
Yeah. So the three of us took a trip down to West Virginia to the Echo Valley shooting range there, and Echo Valley Training Center. Got to get the name right for sponsorship purposes. But we shot the Moons Out 2026 Night Vision match, brought to you by Nocturne Industries, more probably commonly known as Ian McCullen's Night Vision match from Forgotten Weapons, and probably one of the biggest Night Vision matches in the country, I would say.
I would think so. It's probably the most complex night vision match in the country.
Oh, yeah.
I would say.
This would have been a difficult task in the daytime. Adding night vision to it makes it a lot more difficult. Casey, you want to give us like a rundown of the match, like what it is?
Yeah, so like you said, it is a night vision only match. They also had thermals, which was cool, but the whole point was take things that seem difficult during the day and add another layer of complexity to it with forcing you to either use thermals or passive and active aiming. And what made it really interesting was just the fact that you had penalties for using white light or visible lasers. So it was 100% lights out, use your stuff.
A lot of money walking around at this match.
I've never felt more at a match like that before. And
that's true. Yes.
Yeah, and then that's the crazy thing, because even to break into night vision, except for the dude that had digital on our squad, like, well, it's well, I think we'll probably hit on that later.
Yes, we will get to that.
Yeah. But in general, like I said, it even just to get into it is a lot of money. But then you start multiplying like the dollars. If you have one tube to two tubes, I mean, it gets pricey, and then you get L3 for night vision, and it gets even more pricey. People running thermals, that's not cheap either. Plus, they highly recommended that you be suppressed for this match as well too. And I would say probably, I don't know, like 85% of the shooters were probably suppressed at this match.
Oh, I'd say it's probably higher than that, because I could probably count. We had one guy in our squad that didn't have one, and then ironically that gun went down, so he shot suppressed the second night. But we had, I mean, you probably count on one hand the number of times I heard an unsuppressed rifle fire.
Yeah, and it was weird too, because you'd be like listening to people that were shooting suppressed, and then all of a sudden somebody wouldn't, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
like you're using a break or something, but no.
Yeah, it was strange.
Just so a few more things on Moons Out. It is a two night match. I almost said 2-day match, but it's definitely not during the day. It's a 2-night match, 5 stages each night, and then because of the complexity of the stages, it's not surprising that there's only five stages. Usually with a match like that, you're getting like 6 to 7 stages in a day if it was a day match. But again, just keeping track of everybody to make sure that they're not wandering off, which we had a squad mom, which we'll get into. And then just resetting stages, because they were pretty complex and really fun stages, again, even despite that it was a nighttime match. And some stages took a little bit longer than others. And then on top of it, every stage has a 4-minute timer, I think it was, on the on each stage.
240 seconds. So how does that break down to?
4-minute par.
That's 4 minutes par.
Casey's the engineer.
Yes. Oh, so we finally have a smart person on the podcast.
That's fair.
I had to take off a shoe to do that math. Don't trust me.
Okay.
Nice. All right. So before we kind of start going into the match and talking about the stages and our gear and all of that stuff, what was starting with Casey? What was your favorite moment at this match? And if it's about a stage, that's fine too, because we'll talk about stages later anyway.
I think it wasn't any one particular moment. It was how cool everybody was about everything. I think that everybody there had the attitude of we all get to do a really cool thing, and the ROs were very we want you to have a great time. And if you were struggling with something, they would help you to the best of their ability to kind of push you past whatever hurdle you were stuck on. And everybody in the squad was super cool. Everybody was super friendly. There was no like, I need to outcompete you all type vibes to everybody. And so I think just the people that were there made it absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that's actually a fantastic call out, Casey. You know, you don't think about how we do because we did actually talk about all night about how awesome everybody was, how awesome the squad mom is, but it just makes for a really great match. But if ever shot a match where you've had somebody on your squad that just wasn't a great individual, it definitely drags the whole thing down. And this whole thing's already tough enough as it is. Lots of encouragement, lots of like cheering, lots of helping. We had multiple people on our squad have to swap out rifles. And even like people that were on the like staff actually gave rifles to people so that they could complete the match, which
Mhm.
is saying a lot because normally you shoot a match and your rifle goes down, you're done, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Thanks for playing.
Yeah, exactly. So that ended up being just kind of a really good like a really good takeaway with this match is I definitely will go back at some point, but just because of just the camaraderie from the squads.
Yeah.
All right,
So,
Kyle, what was one of your highlights, buddy?
so the highlight, I think probably one of the highlights of it is just how creative they get with stages. Even like the stages that are like pretty straightforward and you would think maybe would be considered boring are a very have some kind of interesting twist to them. We'll get more into it during when we talk about the actual stages and things like that, but there's no stages in this that are like overly complex, but none that are like okay, that was boring to shoot. Now, they may not be fun to shoot, or how'd you put it, Phil? Type
Type
two
two.
fun. Yeah, they were definitely some type two fun stages, but there were also some stages that were just they were absolutely a blast, and no matter how well you did, you just came out on a high note.
I remember when we were meeting at the shooters brief at the start, and Ian from Forgotten Weapons was like, "This is the most physical moons out that we've ever done." And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, "All right, like here we
Crap.
go." Yeah, I was like, because obviously being that this is like Ian's match, and there are other gun tubers that show up at this. Like the content is out there, so you're able to kind of like watch the videos in advance to get a flavor of what to expect in the match. And I think year 4, you kind of get that like itch to change things up a little bit, and I think that's kind of what they did for this match for sure, and adding some additional physical complexity to the stages themselves.
Yeah. So what was your favorite aspect?
I think it was I think you guys hit on like the top two for sure, like with the camaraderie and then just the unique stages. So I think the third item on that list would be if you've shot matches before, like there's like a hierarchy of like when you start matches, like shoot a steel challenge match, right? Or like a CMP match, something like that. That's easy. And then you work your way into like IDPA, USPSA, 3-gun, and then to like I guess for lack of a better term, like tactical multi guns or running guns. And then the last item on this list, short of doing maybe like one of those crazy like major hike matches where you do like shoot long range PRS stuff and then go like for miles at a time, is shooting a night vision match.
Yeah.
So it's like there's not really like where do you go from here if you're a competitor, right?
Yeah, if you're
It's
looking for a
yeah,
challenge, this is about one of the most challenging matches I've ever shot. I was humbled many times during this match.
absolutely. And again, the requirements to get there are so high from like a skill perspective, a gear perspective, and then just like understanding how matches run and being like a member of the community aspect, right? Like you have to behave yourself and everything because it's we're using inherently dangerous things at night, right?
Yeah,
So
with no light.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, not just at night, but no lights at all.
Yeah. So let's kind of dip into our gear then. We'll do an overview. I think people are familiar with what you would run in, like a two gun type style match or like a USPSA match. But what are the things, I guess, Kyle, that kind of separates this match from the others? And then if you want to kind of give us a rundown of some of those like pieces of gear that you specifically set up for this match,
Yeah.
and then we'll have
So
a case you do the same, and I'll cover the same.
cool. So yeah, this match, night matches are way different than your normal 2-gun match or 3-gun or USPSA match. You have the whole added aspect of not being able to see, really. I mean, you're seeing good enough, but without really practicing and having a lot of time behind your night vision device, you're kind of, I mean, you're shooting a whole stage through a toilet paper tube, sometimes two toilet paper tubes, or if you have a lot of money, four toilet paper tubes. But the so everything you do at a day match is going to be totally different, and gear is going to play a lot into how much different it is. So I ran the active division, which is kind of the largest competitive pool at this match. Most of the competitors were shooting in active. That's obviously night vision device, some kind of active aiming laser, IR flashlight, something like that, something that emits IR to help you aim. And then you can have whatever kind of passive aiming or thermal aiming optic also on your rifle. Also, with that, it is a rifle only match. There's no pistols allowed at all uh, on your gear. So you it didn't really have to worry about that, but it made you kind of decide how much more you want to change with stuff. The What I ended up running is just a very simple like micro chest rig, 3 mag pouches, just for extra storage space. Really, I never expected to use it, even though I ended up using them. Uh, Guys, a URGI upper on a Aero Precision lower, running the first night running a Suomo gear PEC 15 clone and then an EXPS2 from EOTech as my optic. And thankfully I had that optic because the very first stage of the very first night, I pull up on target and my laser is 15 feet off to the right and I cannot get it to re-zero. So I pretty much shot active slash passive the entire first evening.
Yeah, I remember that happening, and that's never like great. I give you credit for making the adjustment on the fly, because that's like shooting passive is a whole different thing because you're trying to line up like an optic behind an optic, right? And
Yeah,
like we do that if you put a magnifier behind an EOTech, but that's attached to your rifle and in line with the device naturally. Whereas like now you're trying to line up your because you ran a single tube, right? So
yeah, PVS 14 with a Cry nightcap.
yep. So you're trying to line up the two into each other and then hit the
Mhm.
targets, and then light diffusion through the optic itself is not always great. Though the EOTechs, I think they have some of the best, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it is probably one of my favorites that I've ever used under like a passive aiming situation. Close second being like a Trijicon RMR, just because it's so small. Uh, it seems to do really well, but I had to use what I had.
Were you
And
running
then it
that on
was
a
it,
riser or anything?
No, so it's a lower.
oof.
The EXPS3 is a lower 1/3, which I don't have a. I'm not a massive person, so it rides pretty well for me. I do have to kind of crane my head or ride the stock up a little high on my shoulder to see through the optic comfortably and quickly. If I had like, a 1-inch riser or something like that, it probably would have made things easier, but that would also affect my daytime shooting more. So I just run it at the lower 1/3.
And then when you say like the active passive setup, it was interesting because you had your like IR flashlight still was like semi-functional, but
Yeah,
then you have
yeah.
to shoot.
The
Yeah,
flood worked great. It was just I couldn't shoot with the laser and safely engage targets even remotely accurately. So I used what I had. Luckily, a couple of stages it was close enough targets I was able to just use the IR floodlight as a laser because the targets were close enough. I didn't have to go passive for every single thing.
nice.
But yeah, most of the stages I had to shoot passive on a lot of the targets.
And then what'd you do for night 2 then?
So night 2, as I recommend at any major match, is bring a backup rifle and a whole backup setup. Now, I didn't have a backup night vision because I'm not going to drop another $3,500 just to have an extra nod. But I swapped out my LS321 from Hollow Sun, which I should have been running in the first place, but I really wanted to see how the Hollow Sun did, and it unfortunately let me down.
Oh,
But
the Somo gear, you mean?
yes, the
Yeah,
Somo
yeah.
gear. The Somo gear let me down. The Hollow Sun did fantastic. I swapped it out. I re-zeroed it in the daytime, and then the RO gave me a chance to double check before our first stage on the second night, and I was able to double check it under IR, and it looked good to go. So, and I didn't have any problems hitting targets with the laser. I had problems hitting targets because of me, but the laser did just fine for the rest of the night.
Spoiler alert, I had that same problem.
Yeah.
It
Spoiler
was
alert.
me.
All
Yeah.
of us had that problem.
Yeah, this was in many aspects was a very fun match, and there were some stages that I think we all did really well at, and then there were definitely stages that humbled us,
Yes.
which again we'll get into. All right, Casey, what did you do? What did you run that was unique specifically to this match? And then what division did you run in?
That's exactly where I was going with that. Philip and I were very cool, and we ran the armored division, which is
Major props.
I don't remember exactly what it translates to in Finnish, but it basically matches what the Finnish reserve are expected to carry on themselves at all times. So I believe the requirements were four full magazines, a plate carrier with plates, a liter of water, a knife, gloves, and I think that's everything we were required to have.
Tourniquet as well too.
Tourniquet, yep. And so for my belt, I always have the med kit on there. So that was nothing special. I grabbed a random knife that I just had laying around and threw it in my kit between the chest rig and my plate carrier. But I think the most interesting thing that I did, and you and I approached this very differently, was I used a core ice plate. And it kind of looks like a piece of armor. And I one wrapped it onto the inside of my plate carrier. And so that kept the weight, all that extra weight, really close to me, and it was kind of nice doing some of the stages because it was such a big thermal well that as I got hot, it kept me a little bit cooler. And then as it got a little bit cold at the end of the night, it had enough like residual heat into it to kind of help keep me warm as well. So I'm a big fan of that. I did forget the plug for the top part of it. And so the first time I bent over to grab something, I just poured cold water right down my back. So that was a nice little surprise. Shout out the guy dressed in the ODST cosplay stuff because he had some electrical tape and he absolutely saved me. Besides that, I was running a PVS 14 on my helmet with an Elbit tube and then a Princeton Tech flashlight that could do both IR and um, red light. That actually worked out really well. And I think, Phil, you really perfected the running the flood while we were doing the stages. And that helped me immensely on a couple of them. And then the only thing I did different for my rifle was I ran a Hollow Sun Iris that ran absolutely fantastically. I had mine turned up to high power the whole time. I figured when it came to illumination, more was more. And there was some really hard to see through stages. So that might have helped a little bit. And then I was running a Daniel Defense Mark 18 on a Daniel Defense lower. And I figured with the longest engagement we had was maybe 50 yards. Like none of it was shooting
Somewhere.
very far.
Yeah, 75 to 50 to 75 probably tops.
So I didn't really have to worry about reaching out and hitting anything. And having a much more maneuverable rifle really came in handy at a couple different points. And so I'm glad I was talked into SBRing that before we left.
Nice.
Yeah, that's one thing. If like I run for my matches, I always run like a short rifle as well too, just because the maneuverability. But with all of us running suppressed, you have that suppressor on the end of it that adds additional length to it. That does add the potential to get hung up on stuff. I don't know, Kyle, did you ever have any issues with your 14 and a half?
I didn't, with the exception of the trench stage, which I will get into the many issues I ran into in that stage.
Me too. Casey, anything else? I kind of interrupted your going through your gear. Anything else specific that you had for the night match?
No, but one interesting gear note was that I used a Hux Flow suppressor. Being wrong-handed, I do not enjoy getting gassed out, and it felt like that thing did not take a lot to get really glowy really quickly. So that turned into a lightsaber pretty quick.
The
Yeah,
forbidden popsicle.
yeah. You had the forbidden popsicle, steal my thunder. In
Ah,
just about every stage, you were coming back with a glowing can.
Yeah, I didn't think it negatively impacted performance at all. I don't think I noticed it when I was shooting, but it was definitely interesting to be the only one, except for one stage where people were trying to drop the hammer on the targets, that I was coming back with that. Oh, and I was running a Sig Romeo 4T Pro optic, I think. And spoiler alert, I had some operator error with that, but that did a really good job of being passive, and it looked really good through night vision.
All right, Phil. What gear did you run?
all right. So I ran my traditional like match rifle, which is primary weapon systems upper, which is a piston, long stroke piston if you're not familiar with it, and then an aero precision lower, 11 and a half inch barrel on that puppy as well too. And then I ran a Sound Circle 36M, and that's kind of my dual can, and I have that, and I've not had any issues with that at all. It doesn't have a huge shift on my ammo either, though I did use different ammo this match, cheaper 55 grain, knowing we weren't really getting any distances, and I just need to make target hits. I did run a suppressor cover on that from Coltech. Actually ran really well. There was another guy on another stage who ran a suppressor cover. I think that was not a high heat cover on a stage that definitely required a lot of ammo, and you could smell that thing pretty bad. It would smell like melted
Yeah,
plastic.
yeah. That can was cooked. that
Yeah,
cover was cooked.
yeah, it was part of the suppressor at the end of that.
Yes.
And I ran an armored TST as well. Similar setup to Casey, Feral Concepts, FCPC, I guess, which is a little different than your Slickster, but with like the three like placard in the front for 3 mags. I had actually had a pair of expired plates that I just run now. Because I mean, I'm sure they're fine because they sit inside my house all the time. But I just run them because I'm like, if I break them, I'm not really gonna be mad about it because they're old. But and then I ran my water in a Camelback, which is a little bit different than what Casey did, on my back. On like the FCPCs have a zip-on backpack that you can use and use fine. I didn't drink the water out of it the whole night because I just made sure I had a full liter the whole time. But yeah, I ran a little bit extra water in there just in case. But that whole thing, I've run it before at the Wolverine 5K, so fairly used to that shooting of that setup on.
Mm.
And then on the rifle, I should say too, I run a Sig 4H, so it's like the cheaper version of what Casey has. I used it on one stage and one stage only. Otherwise, I used Holosun Iris, again, similar to what Casey has as well. Like, honestly, it's really hard to beat the Iris for what it costs and what it does and its ability to keep zero, which is pretty impressive. I have a few SMS lasers that are like not waterproof, which we got rained on. So I'm kind of glad I had
Mm-hmm.
the Holosun. That worked out really well. Definitely recommend it to anyone that is looking to buy a new one that doesn't already have an IR device. Definitely a good one to start off with. And then ran a Team Windy helmet with a Photonis monocular, and that worked pretty well. There were some stages that were really dark that I had a hard time seeing things, and kind of like what Casey was saying earlier, I had one of those small like Princeton Tech IR headlamps. I had heard later that last year they didn't actually allow people to use those. Nobody said anything about it this year, but I think the reason being was because it was just so dark that it made it quite a bit safer if you had them. Though with the ROs following you later, we kind of found even with our glow sticks, it made it hard for them, and everything's kind of washed out. But I definitely umbrellaed that on a few stages, which basically means just pointing the light at like the ceiling if you're inside. We did have a stage that was inside. Otherwise, I ran it like facing down so I wouldn't trip over things, and it worked really well for that. Highly recommend it because my monocular is not a PVS 14. It's in a Katana, which is like a 3D printed monocular, and it doesn't have an onboard IR light like the PVS 14s do.
Mm-hmm. And
So,
you're also fixed gate as well, right? Or fixed gain.
Gain,
You can't
the gain,
you
correct. And being that's a photonist, like those don't have super high gain anyway. So I didn't have, and I kind of knew that when I was getting into it. Otherwise, I would have done a PVS 14. But the gain never gets overly high where it feels like anything was ever washed out, unless I was like looking at people directly with their like either IR on or with their glow sticks in the back of their helmets.
Mm-hmm.
But during a stage, you're not doing that. You're only looking forward at your IR device. But yeah, everything went well. I didn't really have any issues. The only issues was really operator problem, which again we'll get into as the stages as we step forward. All right. With that said, let's kind of start walking through the stages here. Unless anyone else has any comments regarding gear and equipment.
Oh,
My one favorite little piece of gear was my do-it-yourself iris for my PVS 14 that just allowed for quickly focusing, and I could put a lens cap cover on it. So like when we were getting rained on pretty heavily, I knew that I was still hadn't shot that one, and I didn't want water to get in there and distort everything. So I was able to just turn it off and throw the cap over it and not have to worry about it. That was a nice little feature.
That is actually a good call out. I had the rubber caps as well too, and was glad I had those. I had the iris as well, and I bought the iris specifically for my nod because I assumed that there was gonna be a stage we had to read something on. And one of the advice things I'd read is that if you have to read something, that to put iris on it. I guess that helps with being able to read things up close. So, but this year we did not have to read anything on the stages.
And see, I did none of that and couldn't see crap when it rained. All right, so
Yeah, go ahead.
let's get into these stages here. Phil, walk us through stage 1, which is the tail gunner stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll go in order of the actual stage numbers versus like the stage we ran them. We actually started with stage 8, but just to keep people from getting like confused as to where we're at. So tail gunner was probably I think it was my favorite stage of the match. I'll be curious what your guys' thoughts are here in a second. But you start off in the back of a Humvee, which number one, how often do you get to ride in the back of a Humvee unless you're like military, right? Which is probably all the time in that case. But you start in the back of the Humvee. They bring you down this like trail, and then they drop you off at the end of this range that I don't think we've ever shot in that range at Zombie before.
No, I didn't even know it was there. I think they made it.
I'm pretty sure you're right about that because it was the stage itself had random like berms throughout, and then there was a section that you kind of drove through the woods for a bit, and then you picked up again on targets that you're shooting at later. But anyway, this was actually a bonus stage, and any shots that you got on target were a 5-second bonus towards your score. So again, a good thing. So again, they ride you around, they drop you off at the end of the stage, and then they say, "Hey, we'll give you a heads up where the targets come. Keep scanning the whole time." The first target is at the end of the bay as you start, like right out behind you. And the whole time you're in this Humvee, it's completely blacked out. So there's no lights on. The driver's running under a set of dual nods. Props to that guy that ran it. Like he drove it both nights for every single shooter, and probably what is one of the more stressful stages to run. And they just did a fantastic job. So anyway, when you're ready to go, they let you know, and then they slap the side of the Humvee. They hit the timer, and you get going, and then you just light up a single target at the back. Right, every shot you get is a bonus for you. So I ran just a standard semi-automatic trigger, so nothing overly special. And then as you're driving down the range, bumping around, there's additional targets on either side that you have to engage. And then if there's 2 targets, you have to gauge them 1, 2, 1, 2. You can't just dump a bunch on one and dump a bunch on the other. And eventually you get to the end of the stage, again, with a few target arrays as you're working your way down. When you get to the end, the Humvee stops. you hand your rifle muzzle up to the RO, and then another RO hands you a cannon with a golf ball in it, a glow in the dark golf ball too. And then you have to launch the golf ball at like the back berm of one of these ranges. And if you did, I think it was a 30-second bonus.
Yeah.
Yep.
30 seconds.
Which is pretty significant in this match, especially because penalties are 60 seconds.
Insanely significant.
Yep. So like that single hit can move you up or down positions if you get it or don't get it. So kind of a big deal. But again, how often do you get to shoot in a Humvee that's blacked out at night, shooting at targets? Basically, they're giving you like carte blanche to like dump on these things and get as many as you can. So I actually ran my D60 on that. It was the first time I've run a fully loaded D60. I lost track of my shot count by the time we got to like the wood section where there's a little bit of driving and not shooting. So I ended up loading into a 40 round magazine as well too, even though I was bumping around. But one of the advantages of being a taller guy is being able to like kind of press yourself from the back of the gate of the Humvee and then the back of the Humvee itself. So
yeah, cheat.
I mean, a little bit. But again, this stage was awesome, and I'm actually going to kick it over to you, Kyle, because there was some advice, and this is the whole match time too. We're giving each other advice on how to run stages, which is just great. Right? What other match are you going to do that in? Because I mean, we do it all the time in our squad. Let's be honest, we're all buddies, but like we're all giving each other people on the squad advice too, like hey, how to run it. And then Kyle, you told me a way to run it that actually ended up getting a lot more points for a lot of us as a result. So I don't know if you want to kind of talk about that positioning of the rifle.
So, I mean, being ex-military, I've ridden in Humvees a lot. I have not shot out of them like with a rifle many times, just on a handful of occasions. But the direction we received from the RO was the tailgate of the Humvee is your 180. If that gun muzzle comes into the truck or goes past the infinite line that tailgate makes at any point, you're done. And this is not the one to be done on because it was a lot of fun. So what I did, and then what I recommended and worked pretty well for a few of our you guys and our squad mates, was to hook your vertical grip, your hand stop, your bipod over the tailgate and then pull back into it. That one, it'll keep you from sliding backwards, which of course Phil and Casey are Vikings and don't have that problem, but I had a good foot and a half between the back of the Humvee and my back, so I had to hang on for dear life, a couple of those runs. But it gives you that extra kind of fourth point of contact where you can keep that rifle stock tucked in your arm, pistol grip, hand on the pistol grip, hand on top of the rifle on top of the thing. You get a little bit more stability, and you can really get into the targets a little bit more. I too ran a D60 for the first time in a competition. I've been leery of them because of the third-party experiences I've had with people running D60s. But if you're going to run one at a match, this was the stage to do it on. Up to a 30 hit bonus for 5 targets. You don't want to be spending time reloading if you don't have to. I had an FRT in my gun specifically for a stage like this. The rumor was that it was going to happen, so I foregoed the venerable Geisley and kept the rare breed in my lower. And I got out of there with 16 hits plus the bonus, but just being able to hammer the targets and give the ROs a good chuckle too, because not everybody had them, so they get to have some good experience when you get to just start ripping rounds through.
There was a guy on our squad too that had a transferable full auto lower, and he definitely made use of that on the stage.
Oh,
I think he had the most hits too. Also, I think he's the one last year that broke the stage because he had the full auto. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. He. We were informed by our RO that he was the reason why we have a maximum allowance of 30 hits, because even with that, he went negative 2 seconds for the stage. Last year, he went negative like 3.5 minutes with the amount of rounds he was putting down range. So, It was
And
just,
then,
that was a really good stage.
yeah, and then the cool thing was when you're standing on the like waiting area, so you can see the Humvee as it like finishes, like as it stops. And then when people would hand their rifle to the RO, they would hand the foregrip to the individual, and they'd hold it up or whatever, right? And everybody's can was glowing like a popsicle, and that guy specifically that was shooting the full auto, like that thing was like a lighthouse, like in
Yeah.
the middle of the woods, just like I'm sure that thing was super hot.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure what can he was running, but it was seems to be able to handle that kind of abuse.
Yep. Again, I mean, the favorite stage for most people, just because of the how often are you going to do something like that, right? Which there are a few stages that are definitely like this, but that one being the most unique.
Yeah. So Casey, what was your take on this one?
Definitely agree with you guys that the FRT would have been a huge advantage there. I was only running 30 round mags, and I definitely left a few hits on the table because I ran dry. I think on like one of the last targets, I kind of watched it go by as I was trying to reload, so that was a little bit of a bummer. Something interesting for the last section where they handed you the golf ball launcher was that as the weather changed, I think the beginning of our squad had a very different experience than the end of our squad because the fog rolled in.
Yeah.
I know that the rule was you had to at least engage the target. And so I think Phil and I both had this when we turned that corner and they were like, there's the last target. I had no idea where that thing was.
Yeah.
And the guy finally told me, just put a round down range so I don't have to penalize you. And so I think we both had to do that with just send one just to say that we shot at it. And so when I shot the golf ball launcher, I had no idea what I was aiming at.
Just into the ether.
Yeah, basically what it felt like.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they did a good job too of like kind of pointing out like where the berm was, so you definitely weren't like shooting the round somewhere where you shouldn't. So even though you couldn't see the target, you were definitely putting it in the direction of the berm itself,
Somewhere
even
a
if you
safe
couldn't see it.
direction.
Exactly. All right. So then for stage 2 was called Man Down. Casey, do you want to give us a rundown? I think this is probably one of your best stages. Do you want to give us a rundown of what the Man Down stage, which is our last stage of the whole match, but again, stage 2 in the order?
Yeah, so this one had a bunch of pistol bays. I think it was 3 different pistol bays kind of that you were running between. And then at the end, it opened up into a much larger bay area. So we were starting off, and you had to run into the first bay and kind of skim along the berm, and you had to shoot on the move. And there was actually a pickup truck following us that if you stopped moving while you were shooting, they would start honking at you just to motivate you to get going. So those were probably 30-yard shots. And there were 2 poppers in the corner you had to hit. Then you had to advance to the next bay, 2 poppers there, and then you had to move into the final bay, which is where most of the shooting happened. And in there, they had, I don't remember what they called it. It wasn't a VTAC board.
The
But
Yari
it,
barricade. The
Yari
Yari.
barricade.
Yeah. And so they had 3 different triangles that you had to shoot through, and you had to get 1 hit from each triangle, 3 different squares that you had to shoot through, and you had to get hit from each one of those. And then they had 2 different rectangles, same thing, 1 hit through each of those. And then through either the side, or if you were tall like Phil and I, you could go over the top. You had to do 1 shot from there. And something I really liked that they did was they had the high value shots. And this is basically you dropped the mag and then you took a shot, and that ensured that the rifle was a dead stick. And that allowed you to get into more physical elements. So after that shot, you had to run over to a dummy that was staged probably 20 yards away and grab that and haul it back to your shooting position. And then you had to repeat the Yari barricade and get 1 hit from each one of those. And I think they said that thing weighed about 250 pounds. It was not a light dummy at all.
Yeah, it was a fire. It wasn't a casualty dummy that most people are probably familiar with. This is like something Les Winter has dreamed up in a fever dream, that it's made out of fire hoses.
It was dense.
It was dense. It did not like to slide across the gravel either.
No. And
No,
I
and
actually
it was funny. Go ahead.
I finished that stage with 0.12 seconds left on the clock due to some operator error, and so that one was exciting, but
But you
also
didn't par out.
didn't par out exactly.
Yeah.
The dummy was interesting too because they told us that you couldn't grab him around the neck, but after I grabbed him by the leg and then just pulled him down, and that worked out pretty well actually. I think somebody had said earlier that there was some loose material. Maybe it was Kyle. He said that there was some like loose material in the leg. So I grabbed that guy by the leg and like pulled him down. That worked out pretty well. But I was like trying to think of like if you were to grab him on the neck, I feel like that would really slow you down.
Yeah.
I think they were saying his head was made of loops, and so you couldn't just like throw a fist through his head and then.
Oh yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Don't punch your buddy through the face and drag him across the range. Yeah.
But you can grab him by the leg though. That was fine.
Yeah. You can
Take a leg
tear
off.
his ankle out.
This stage was interesting too because it was our final stage, and the whole match, this entire match, the moon was not out until this final stage. But not everyone got like the moon because it was behind going in and out of clouds. So not everyone had that. And then because of like all the rain that we had, there was a ton of like mist and like fog on the back of this stage specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, halfway through my run on this stage, this stage ruined my rankings in the match. I moved through those poppers super quick. Moved through the first run of the VTAC pretty good. Drug the dummy, it sucked, but I got it done. Moved back to the VTAC or the Yari barricade. I got 2 rounds into it, and then it was just a white wall of fog, and I could not tell you how far that target was, where it was in the bay. I could barely see. Occasionally my IR floodlight would reflect off of a puddle of water, and I would see a piece of metal, shiny metal on the base, the target base itself. Not even the target, but the base itself. I'd see this little flash of shiny, and I could try to make my correction based off that. But Diaro was a great sport, trying to help me walk in because he either had higher quality night vision or just knew where the target was so well from ROing it for 2 days or 3 days. And yeah, I ended the stage parred out, 5 misses, 300 seconds in penalties. And calculated it out, I went from 24th overall to 73rd overall because of this one stage.
I didn't realize that you were that high, man.
It was disheartening to say the least, looking at the practice score the next couple days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was super luck of the draw with how much moon you got.
And looking at the loom going when I was unloaded so clear and got to walk of shame back to the squad area, there was a nice big dark cloud sitting over the moon and just a big thick dense cloud of fog or mist right at the end of the bay where the target is, and I'm just like, that's night vision matches though. As Casey said on the Humvee stage, unfortunately competitive equity is not something you can really control if you want to do a match like this. If one squad has rain on a stage versus a squad that doesn't, the squad with a dry stage is going to do better than the squad that had to shoot it in a pouring rain with no moon, and just the way it is.
Yeah, when I ran through the stage, I left two shots. This is one of, I think I got some minor penalties in smaller stages, but this is one of the stages I left stuff on them, and I parred out on this one too. And I left 2 targets at the end. I had full moon, and even with the full moon on that, I had a difficult time finding the target at the end of the bay. To this day, I could not tell you exactly what that target was made out of, or not made out of, what it was. If it was a popper or a C zone, AC zone, or a full blown like Ep.68 like steel target, I have no idea. I think it was a full IPSC size target.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Yep.
I think at one point I saw a head. I feel like we're talking about a cryptid.
I know. And
The
the
ghost of Bay 2.
it kind of was, because it did look kind of like, misty when it was out there. And then I don't know what it was, if it was my angle or what, but like with my IR laser, it was like a line. Like, fortunately, the line was like up and down. So I just kind of put the line generally on the target, and I definitely missed some stuff. But because it was up and down versus left and right, I was able to hit on the target, just kind of putting it in the center. But one thing I had, and I'm still trying to figure out what happened, and this actually happened on the trench stage as well. My brain like switched off my dominant eye from looking down the tube, and then like, I don't know if it's because of how bright the moon was or what, but it like switched it over to like my non-dominant eye, and like I was trying, like, obviously you can't see the IR laser with that, so I'm like, I can't see my laser. I'm talking to the RO, and he's like, "You're right on it." And I'm like, "I don't see it." So either it was just my positioning, or like my tube was occluded, so my other eye was picking up, or whatever. But that messed me up, and then ended up costing me 2 shots on that. Plus, I missed the high value, which was another penalty on top of that.
Yeah.
But that stage was fun, and that's one of those things I think Casey talked about too, where like if you have experience shooting on the move, it's a lot of fun. And it's like one of those things that gives you a reason to learn how to shoot on the move, because you can kind of blaze through the first like poppers in the first 2 bays just by like booking it. Because I think, Kyle, when you got done, you were like, move as fast as you can through bay 1 and bay 2 until you get to bay 3.
Sprint, because I timed out. I think the next 2 guys behind me timed out, and so my advice to both you guys, so with your USPSA and 2-gun experience, was just get your feet moving as quickly as possible. Give yourself the most time you can on this more difficult part. We're all 3 of us pretty comfortable shooting rifles on almost a run, and you could definitely tell the difference between the guys who shoot on the move a lot and the guys that spend a lot of time behind VTech barricades or just shooting static. And it definitely gives you a competitive advantage.
I think you hit the biggest thing that Phil and I talked about the day before, is being confident moving at night.
Yes,
and
I was just going to talk about that.
Yep, you could tell who wasn't, because it was very ginger, small steps, and especially when we got into like the more muddy stages, like the trench, which we'll talk about. Once you lose that confidence in your ability to walk, you lost a lot of movement and time to that.
Yeah, and this was one too where like when you're moving like this, I don't have binos, so obviously if you have to assume the depth perception would help a little bit, and then help me move a little bit faster. If the moon was out, so that stage wasn't too bad. I think for stages that have a little bit more moon cover and your eye can actually see, your non-magnify or non-illuminated eye can see a little bit better. That would definitely help in that regard, especially some of the stages that were really dark because there was no moon at all. Would definitely help with like just your general movement. You could probably move a lot faster, a lot more steady as well. Not to say that any of us move slow at all by any means, considering what we had. I think all 3 of us did really well. With that, let's move on to stage 3. This is probably the next favorite stage of most people, but this was the bug out stage. And Kyle, I'm actually going to have you walk us through this stage.
Yeah, so this actually probably was my favorite stage, mostly because it seemed to be the most night focused stage. But we started totally doffed of our gear. If you had a helmet with Ear Pro attached to it, you could leave that on, but you had to detach your night vision device from it. Plate carriers off, belts off, rifles all staged in a bucket and inside of our the Hesco shoot house that Echo Valley has. You then follow the RO to the back of the shoot house, where you get in a shot up old pickup truck, and you have a iron sighted bone stock Sport 2 style AR with a white light on it, and you have 30 rounds of frangible ammunition. 30 rounds only. And at the buzzer, you exit the vehicle. You then engage 4 steel plates at the behind the vehicle. You can't advance past the tailgate, mostly for a safety and difficulty aspect. But you had to engage those 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Not, you weren't allowed to double tap those targets, but each of the 4 needed to be engaged twice. Then safe the gun into the shoot house. First room on the right, engage all the targets, 2 hits each. Exit the shoot house, or exit the room into the hallway, into the next room, engage all the targets, 2 hits each. Then sprint to your gear, which is staged in the back of the room. Don all your gear, grab your rifle, sprint back to the truck. From the front of the truck, you then engaged the 4 steel targets, again in the same 1, 2, 3, 4 sequence twice, and that was your time. I think this was my favorite stage because of that switching between borrowed rifle with white light and trying to move as quickly as possible through that, and then grabbing your own gear, donning that, having to load your rifle, and then re-engaging those 4 targets. It was a really straightforward stage, but there was a lot of places where you could get hung up on movement, trying to use a new rifle, your gear being all discombobulated. It was a really easy way to take a very simple stage and make it difficult because you're doing it at night. The stage during the day would have been something that people have been racing to see how quickly they could get it done. Add the night vision aspect to it, and it gets very complicated.
Yeah, this match, the costing in the match is really high. I think one of the reasons is because of a lot of the different props that they use. Like frangibles, having 140 something competitors with 30 rounds of frangibles, even if you didn't shoot all of them, is a lot of money. Frangibles are not cheap, right? So, like some of your match fees definitely go back into making these stages fun. Because I mean, how often do you get to shoot at like 3 yards to 5 yards with an AR-15 that's not in like 9mm or something like that, right?
I would
And do
never
it safe.
recommend
And
doing
do it
that.
safely.
And do it safely. Yes, that's that. I mean, you can do that all you want, but you may get a ricochet back in your face. But this was kind of cool watching from the outside too, because when people would go through the stage, you could see like the flashes coming off of the target when they would shoot them up close. You could see like coming over the top of the Hesco barricades.
Yeah, it was like a little fireworks show for all the spectators getting to watch the chunks of the frangible just flying off at molten speeds.
This stage was unique into the one. I should say there are 2 stages to put your gear back on. This is one of them. I ran into an issue where I lost a bunch of time on, and I kind of knew I was going to run into that problem, but I was trying to overly game too much in this thing. But I had somebody that had their ear pro that was part of my helmet, so I had to leave my helmet on, which meant taking your nod off. And when I went after the white light section, I went in to pick my gear up. That was the first item that I was going to put on. I could not get that to the dovetail into the mount on my helmet. Looking forward, I probably should have put the mount down so it'd be easier. Like it'd be a straight line instead of on a weird angle. But this was I went second on this stage, and it was still there was just enough daylight out where I actually pocketed the nod, put the rest of my gear on, like they threw the plate carrier like over my shoulder, put my belt around, and tightened it up and ran. There was enough light at the end of it where I'd use my optic to shoot the steel targets. I could barely see them. Like it was just like super, and I missed at least one shot on them as a result of that. But I would have been on that stage still to this day trying to put that nod back on.
Yeah.
If I hadn't done that.
And you shot this stage before me, so I learned from your mistake, and I waited for that was the last thing I put on. I was running in ear pro, so I was able to take my entire nightcap off and put it in the bin. But I threw my chest rig just over my head. Didn't bother with the Velcro on my belt. I just slapped it around my waist, slung my rifle. Then I donned my night vision and charged to the truck. But Casey, what was your experience with this stage?
I took a slightly hybrid approach between you guys. Thankfully, I did not have my ears on my helmet, so I didn't have to worry about that. But I learned from the other stage that we had to doff our gear from how to gamer it a little bit more. And so, because I had all the extra weight with the plate carrier and everything, I just hooked my arm right through where you put it on yourself and just kind of clamped my arm down and said, "This is just going to work for what it is." I had actually taken a magazine off of my belt as soon as I started before I tried putting everything on, pocketed it, and then just threw my belt over myself, kind of like bandolier style, and then hooked my plate carrier, slapped my helmet on, and then as I was moving from the shoot house back to the truck, I was able to actually load the mag and kind of start in position loaded, which was kind of nice. And I just cranked down my helmet tension a little bit to kind of keep everything on there, but I didn't bother trying to buckle it or anything. That served me okay.
Yeah, I think I did like a thing where I used my like flap. So I have like a bungee side on my armor and like velcroed it up to like up and around the top, like top velcro where like you put like morale patches and stuff. And then like had the shoulder unclasped, so I would throw it on pretty quick. So that was the only real gamer thing I guess I did on that stage. But other than having a little bit of light to shoot down,
Yeah.
shoot the targets at without having to use nods.
How was it shooting iron sights under white light for you guys?
That was several things I've not done in a very long time.
Yeah, I had the same comment. I think when we started, I told Kyle, I was like, man, I can't remember the last time I shot an iron sighted rifle. And fortunately, they let you get ready. You can like click the light on. You have to start with it off, but you can click it on and just see what that sight picture looks like. But honestly, most of that stuff, other than maybe the first few targets, you could pretty much kind of like you get the light on and you're probably going to hit it, like the center of the light.
They were very point shooting friendly targets.
It actually messed with me a little bit being 3 yards away from the target and being like, okay, everything in my brain says don't shoot this, but I know it's fine. And I was talking to the RO after, and he was like, yeah, I try and hide behind you guys because they were just getting so much of the frangible, just not spall, but whatever you'd want to call the blowback from those. He was like, yeah, if I didn't, he was like, if I didn't hide behind you guys, I would be coming out of this just a mess.
Interesting. All right, moving on to stage 4, everybody's favorite stage, the trench raid. Casey, how about you walk us through this one?
Oh, before we get into this one,
okay.
Was this everybody's worst stage, or at least least favorite stage for the obvious reason of it raining for an hour and a half?
Yeah, that sucked. And I shot it while it was raining.
Yes, me too. Casey got to shoot it when it stopped, but
but the damage was already done.
The damage was done at that point.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of saved this one. I think Casey did the best of all of us. So
he did.
Casey, how about you give us a rundown on the stage and then how it was supposed to work out?
Yes. I also did not finish the stage. So at the very beginning of the stage, you're at the top of the trench and you're about to go down into the entrance. And they had you run down into the actual trench itself. And off to your right, they had a Ivan target. And it was a massive cutout. You couldn't miss it. And after that, shooting that, you had to go to 4 different ports that were along the wall, kind of facing downhill from everything. And through those ports, they had 1 target each that you had to both find and neutralize with, I believe, 2 hits. And so you would work 1, 2, 3, 4. And then they had a mortar area. And in order to complete that section, you had to deck your rifle, pull the pin on a grenade that I think was supposed to be the mortar, drop it down into the tube. It didn't do anything. I don't know if it was supposed to or not.
But yeah, I think it was supposed to detonate a shotgun blank, but they weren't going off.
And then from there, they actually had a thermal rifle stage, or a rifle with a thermal optic stage. And they said, rifle's ready to go, flip it off safety. And when you look down range, they had two heat patches on one of the steel targets for the bonus shot. And so you could use the thermal to shoot that. That was kind of cool. That was my first time shooting thermal. And then you had to continue down the stage and it would hook left. And then there was another Ivan target there. And they said, you just have to shoot it. We aren't even checking it. Just put 3 shots on it and we trust that you hit this massive target. And then you had to work your way back up to those 4 shooting positions you'd already shot from and re-engage those targets. And then at the end of that, if you were one of the few people that actually made it, you were able to use a Lima 6 upper receiver on a FRT rifle. And a Lima 6 is a belt-fed upper receiver, and they had, I believe, 10 rounds loaded in there. And so you could just drop the hammer on the belt-fed, and I think they had a bonus target out there for bonus points. This stage seemed like about 80% of everybody timed out, and it was advanced dark, which is probably where all the problems came in, because I know that I'm sure for all of us, the first target was kind of on a tree line, and I did not know where that thing was. The ROs knew where it was, and they were very nice in trying to walk you into it. But I just had to wait for them to say, you're on it, and pull the trigger and see if I got a hit or not. And so I was completely blind getting, supporting calls from the ROs, and that one took the longest time. I felt like I took like half a mag just to try and find that thing the first time. The rest of them weren't too bad for trying to find the target, but there were some that were a little questionable. And then I'll let you guys give your opinions and kind of if you have any different thoughts, but definitely have thoughts about this one stage in particular because
Yeah,
it felt
I
like it was a
have
lot.
I have strong feelings about this stage.
How many
um,
penalties did you get from it? I think I was down I think I got 2 penalties, 3 penalties off of it.
I just had the one. The one penalty for failure to engage with the FRT with the Lima 6, which is a double kick in the nuts. You don't get to shoot the belt-fed machine gun, and you get a 60-second penalty. This stage, by and large, was my least favorite stage, which is unfortunate because I love running that trench, that system that they have. I just felt like it was way too long for a 240-second par time. With the weather that they had, the unstable ground inside of the trench, plus the netting above that was easy to get hung up on. Now, I did have a self-induced double feed on this stage that probably, if I hadn't done that, would have gotten through and not parred out. But I wouldn't have been so close that a small malfunction that took me very little time to fix should have made the difference. I didn't have really a hard time seeing the targets. I made pretty good hits. My issue came from I kept hitting the dirt in front of it, and they wouldn't call that as a hit, even though I was essentially skipping the rounds. They kept calling it that I was hitting the dirt and not to move on. So, but that's on me, self-induced double feed. It just seems like there was a lot going on this stage.
Mm-hmm.
4 shooting positions, shot twice each, mortar tube, thermal rifle, two prop stage guns. I think I was also angry by angry by proxy for the Lima 6 sponsor that 80% of the people that came to shoot this match didn't get to shoot the Lima 6, that you brought out and are sitting in the rain and letting people trying to generate demand for your product, and people aren't getting able to shoot it. Like I've done some some sponsorships like that, and I would be pretty frustrated and disappointed that was happening. But it was a really great idea. I think it was just a combination of the length of the stage and the weather. Just being back in the woods, so dark, rain, reflecting IR, unstable terrain. It was, I think, just a little bit of a bridge too far, a little bit of an overzealous stage to have, and I'd be interested to see exactly how many people parred out on this stage. I My guess would be 50% or more.
It was a tough one. I think, kind of agreeing with what you said with the Lima, I really wish they'd have swapped that and the thermal rifle around, because it
Mm,
felt like most people were making it to that point, but you were really rushing to get to the Lima at the very end. And I would have been so stoked to mag dump that thing. And that was kind of a bummer that we weren't able to do that, especially because the guy from Lima was there and talking with everyone. They seemed great, and I really wanted to try it, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, this stage was the one that really knocked me down really bad because I had 5 targets left out there. And that's 60 seconds per target. Um, I try my best never to get like flustered on a stage. I definitely got flustered in this one. Moment of humbleness here, some humble pie, and the first target I go down, similar to Casey. Like I couldn't see the first target, and my like I must have readjusted the focus on my nods at some point. Like everything was just like blurred out, or I got water in there or something. But I just could not see the target, could not see my laser and light because you're shooting on these little portholes. So during the day, maybe could have figured out like what was going on, what was not lining up right, like what was I doing that was the problem here. But what I should have done is I should have just like stopped, like just for like a split, a second or two, and like diagnose the problems. But instead, I kind of like spiraled into the stage a little bit, and eventually got hits on it, and then like similar to the rest of you, get down to the end of the. And I'm just like flustered. I'm dumping like mags worth of ammo at like all the targets. Get to the end, shoot the rifle with the thermal on it, which was cool. It's like one of those Call of Duty moments or whatever, right? And then like I think Tarmed out like right at the like Ivan like right after that, and left all the other targets that just unshot on the stage with tons
mm,
of penalties, right? So and that was our second stage of that night, and I went first on that stage.
yeah.
And again, it was pitch black, it was raining. Like the Hotanis, they're great if you've got light, like ambient light, they're fantastic. They do great with like flash from rifles and everything, but there's just not enough gain. And I just like to your point, Kyle, with the uneven terrain, like I got caught up on everything in the trench, being taller too, and that's on
Mm,
me. Got the terrain itself was a bit of a problem, and I was trying to find my head. I don't know why I didn't turn my IR light and my helmet on to help me guide through there. That was a mistake. I'm trying to find it, doing all this stuff on the stage at once, and got lost in the sauce a little bit. And this like soured this stage, and a few stages after, I was just kind of like angry at myself, right?
mm.
So I'm
Yeah, and
trying to get out of that.
that's a really easy thing to do, and with any sort of competition, when you run a bad stage, is allowing it to really influence your performance on the later stages, especially if it's early on, or you're the first shooter, and or if I mean if you make an obvious mistake, it's really easy to let that stuff override the enjoyment of it. And I certainly did. I was not in a nice mood when I got done with that stage. I was not pleasant to talk to. um, I was very frustrated, being literally touching the gun that I wanted to shoot and finishing the stage to parring out, like hand on the gun, par out,
Yeah,
60-second penalty. um, but it is what it is,
it is.
and
Yeah,
we move on to the next stage, and we try to salvage and realize where we could have, you know should we have checked our gear during the make ready a little bit closer. Maybe don't run the charging handle like it's a Magpul Dynamics video from the early 2000s. Just hit the bolt release so you don't influence a malfunction with your gun. um, be a little taller, stand up a little taller in the firing port, so that you don't hit the dirt and miss shots because of that. It's this is definitely the stage where I was humbled in my ability. um that it was just a really good stage that had a couple of things wrong with it. Add the weather, and it made it a brutal stage.
It was definitely a gut check. And it's funny that you say you wished you were a little bit taller on it, because I got caught in that netting a couple times.
Well, I didn't say I
And
wish I was a little taller. I said I wish I stood a little
oh
taller.
yeah,
Because I was hunched down behind the shooting port, but I needed to stand up a little bit more to clear the. I probably dug a new hole for them. I think I put 7 rounds through that through the ledge of that firing port
oh
on
no.
one of those ports.
So that netting was just an extra level of brutal. And I remember they were trying to find another stick to hold it up when I was going, and they were like, "Well, gonna be what it be."
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine.
You guys had to do the roadie runs to try to get under that netting, but
I don't have a great history with the trench system. This is my third time running the trench, twice before in a match for the Zombie Invitational. And my record on this is not great. 2/3 of those, or two or three of those runs were awful, just awful. Ended up costing me a ton of time, both matches. So I don't know. I'll figure out the trenches at some point. And I think, again, for night vision, this stage is one of those things where if you shoot a lot under nods, this was my third time shooting under nods. And if you shoot a lot under nods and shoot in a lot of weird positions, and also dealing with like stuff overhanging and just being more proficient under night vision, I think makes a big difference.
yeah, at the end of the day, this stage just a cluster for just about everybody that that had to shoot it, and it was rough
It was a gut check for sure.
for sure.
But the good news is we got to go into the next stage, which was stage 4. Stage 5, which is everybody's favorite stage.
This stage was such a good idea, but I was in such a bad mood when we got to it.
So how about Kyle? You go through and let's walk us through the foxhole stage.
So the foxhole stage is exactly what it sounds like. There's 3 foxholes. They're about the first one is you start in. The second one's about 15 yards from that one, and the third one is about 30 yards from the second one. And each one has a steel target in front of it. You started at the first one in the hole, shoot the target. You had the option, if you got the first round hit, you could move. You had to at least shoot twice. If you shot twice, you had to move. And you just go 1, 2, 3. The kicker is you had to continue to shoot and move until you part out. And every hit you got from inside was a 5-second bonus. They were filled with water. The targets were pretty easily visible. If you guys, for me at least, I don't know if you guys agree with that, but
They were.
It was just a physical smoker to get that out, and was not. Most people coming from that trench raid stage, most of us were all, I'm gonna do the minimum I have to do to get through this stage with no penalties, but I'm not killing myself for this. And I think if it hadn't been a par stage, I think if it had been just they added a few more targets and just had it be 1, 2, 3, I think this stage would have been a lot more fun for everybody. But knowing that you have to climb out of a hole, climb in a hole, climb out of a hole, climb in a hole for 4 minutes in the rain was the extra kicker on top of the demoralizing run that most of us had on the stage previous.
Yeah, I was so angry about the previous stage that honestly I kind of liked doing a stage that was more physical like this. That wasn't, the shooting was not challenging at all on this stage. Like you said, you can see the targets pretty easy. You got a few shots and you moved on. So I was so mad. I was like, dude, I'm just gonna do my hardest I can. But I think we all ended up roughly the same anyway.
I think we all ended up with 6.
6, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And I was cursing myself because again, this is day 2 for us, and I'm wearing body armor, And I had been running all summer, but I'd stopped after that like an idiot. And then my cardio was not where I wanted it to be. So I was definitely huffing and puffing personally by the time I hit the sixth hole and turned around and went back up.
Yeah. I finished
But
that. I finished that sixth hole, and I said, "Hey, I'm
yeah,
done."
yeah. But
The
a good stage, and this was one again. The ROs did a really good job because again, it's really hard like possibility to move like to like trip and not like see your footing right on it. So they were really good about directing you where you needed to go because it was a little bit confusing. I think during the day, super easy to see where you had to go, but at night because the path was so wide, it was a little bit harder to see where you were going. I think some people ended up in the netting that they had kind of like creating a path for you to follow or whatever.
I got caught in
But
that.
yeah, not bad. And the one thing I do appreciate about the ROs, they're like, look, these trenches are filled with water. Go to the bottom rung and then shoot off of there. And even for Casey and I, who are pretty tall, initially they were like, yeah, make sure that you're like duck down, like nipples deep or whatever. But I think because of the rain, because of the water in the trenches, they just wanted to make sure we got as far down as we could. And they were like, they really didn't care after that, which I do really appreciate the ROs for that because again, coming off that previously really miserable stage and none of us were going to smoke it. And even digital guy actually had somebody, one of the ROs was guiding him with an IR flashlight because it was so dark and dude would have definitely fallen. It would have been unsafe. And
Yeah.
he wasn't going for any first places. So I think that was really cool of them to do that.
Are we talking about Digital Guy? Are we bringing that up?
Yeah. Digital guy.
Someone on our squad was running what appeared to be a homebrewed digital night vision setup.
Yeah, he built it. I talked to him before the second night when we were in the parking lot. He made that himself.
That's baller. And at the end of the first night, I was like, "Hey, I got to try this thing. I got to see what this is like." And so he lended it to me, and I thought I broke it because it was just static. Like it looked like just white noise the entire time. And I hit my supplemental flood, and I was like, "Oh, I can see a face." And then I just kind of thought about the fact that he went through that entire event like that, and he thugged it out.
Yeah.
Except for his battery died on the last stage, and our fantastic squad mom just loaned him duels, and you could watch his face just completely change. Like, you've been seeing this the whole
Oh,
time.
this is what you all see.
Yeah,
I see, said the blind man.
Yes, his face both lit up because of the nods and lit up because of the nods. Like
He had a
double
big
entendre
grin.
there. Yeah.
I was so hoping he would get to the prize table first and just grab a pair of duels off there and leave happy.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would have been excellent. All right, so Phil, Casey, run us through the stage 6, the run through the jungle, and our best gal, Babushka.
Oh, I love Babushka.
Oh, she's a diet.
So this stage was a 30-yard dash. This was in like a lower wooded area, and it was incredibly muddy, and there was some actually pretty good standing small lakes. I don't think it's unfair to say that one of the shooting positions was in a
And this is
Yeah,
now, even though this is stage 6, this is our first night of shooting, and this was our third or fourth stage.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once we get down in there, you started sitting on a log, and you had to take off on a run down this trail that once you found it, it was pretty easy to find. But you had to find the trail, and ROs were really nice and kind of pushed you in the right direction. And you came up on this looking down into a riverbed, and they had 3 targets in there that you had to shoot while moving. And so that added a layer of complexity. After you hit those, you had to run to a array of 4 targets down a trail. So that was kind of nice to be able to not have to bushwhack for it. And once you shot those 4 targets, you had a high value shot to give you a dead stick. And then you had to grab Babushka, which was a casualty dummy that was strapped down to a gurney. And you had to haul Babushka, I'm going to say probably close to 50 yards in that gross mud, slipping and sliding. And you had to haul her back to the starting point. And from there, you could grab a golf ball launcher and run to another position, which was in a small lake. I was at least ankle deep and absolutely flooded out from that one, and shoot a golf ball at one of 2 tank cutouts. The easy to see one was 5 seconds, and then the much harder to see one that was kind of tucked in the woods a little bit was a 30-second bonus. And this is kind of the first stage where I realized that, oh, you can use supplemental light while you're running to see what's actually going on. And so some people did that and they had a much less time. Phil and I had mechanical advantage on hauling Babushka. I didn't think it
Yeah.
was that bad, but everybody seemed to not enjoy her. And this was a pretty
I
fun
didn't
stage.
mind her either.
Yeah, like it was fine. I know some people
Yeah.
just said it's worth the 60-second penalty and just dropped her and ran.
It would not have been. I don't think you could have
No, it
outrun.
definitely was
I don't
not.
think you could outrun that 60-second penalty.
No.
No.
But if I knew I wouldn't have gotten DQ'd for it, I think I would have taken my bonus shot into Babushka rather than at the DNP.
Nice. I mean, if you left her down range, maybe you could have shot towards her, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. Just stand her up real quick. Move her down. So at least I say I moved her down. Then stand her up and shoot her with the golf ball.
There were some people that didn't like this stage. I actually did, and this was one of my like top 5 stages of the night. I know there were 10, right? But there were some really good stages. So, I always liked the wood stage on Zombie. There's something fun about like being under nods, like shooting through some light cover into steel targets that were like down in like a stream bed that kind of felt like shooting into like a trench system or whatever. And then again, dragging Babushka back and these weird tank cutouts that they had. I got kind of lucky on that one. They were like, hey, just take a shot at the far one because it's worth 30 seconds, versus like 5 or whatever. I racked out because they gave you the can or the golf ball cannon, and the previous shooter's blank was still in there. So you had to crank it out because it had been shot, and then it was supposed to pick up the next round, and then you fire it. So I did that, watched the brass fly to the right, and then, of course, the bolt goes forward. I pull the trigger and click. There was nothing. Of course, the stage was done at that point. They stopped it. The RO pulls the mag out, pulls an IR light, and he goes, "Hey, that was our fault. The round had been seated funny because blanks, they're like a standard 5.56 cartridge, obviously with no round in it, but they like crimp the end of it. So it is possible to seat those in wrong. And sure enough, I sat it, and I saw it, and it was just not sat right in the magazine. So I ended up getting the 30-second bonus without actually having to take the shot itself.
Cheater.
That's just the way it goes. Because like, what are you going to do? The only other thing I think they could do is stop the clock at that point, fix the problem, hand you the golf ball cannon, and then you take the shot. No, at that point you're not under the clock stress, so maybe there's an advantage there, but at least it forces you to take the shot.
Yeah.
But it would slow down everything. So I think, obviously I got 30-second bonus, so I think it was the way to do it. But
yeah, I mean, I
agree.
I agree. All the competing we've done, that is 100% the right call. You obviously were taking a shot at the 30-second target, then in the stop prop gun malfunction, you should absolutely be given credit for hitting that target.
Right. All right. On to stage 7. I'll cover this one. This was our last stage for day 1 for us, but stage 7, in the order of operation, and actual stages. This was called Vehicle Ambush. This is on a 360 bay, that is almost truly a 360. It's probably like a 270. So I guess maybe it's not as close as we think it is. But in this specific stage, similar to the shoot house, all of your gear had to come off, go into a tote that you then put in the back of a staged car that had its trunk open. And the idea was that when you started off, you had to clear, they had 3 different arrays of, was it 3 targets each?
Yeah.
Yep.
And they were paper targets because it was fairly close. So this is one of the few stages where they actually use paper targets just because of the proximity to the shooter. Anyway, so you start off, you have to clear the array or all 3 arrays, and then you went to the back of the car, did something with your rifle. I stuck mine into the trunk because it was just easy to do. Put all of your gear on you. So however you wanted to do that. Again, I did similar trick that I did on the shoe house, just kind of threw my gear over my shoulder, put my belt around it and called it good. And then re-engage all of the targets in the same arrays again. This was a good stage. I did get a penalty on this. I had a mic on it. I don't know how, but clearly I did, and that was on me. I just probably pulled the trigger too early or whatever. But this stage, I think I should have taken additional shots at the target because there was no penalty for shooting more. And you already had to do a reload too. I forgot to mention that, but you had to do a reload of your rifle when you did the second array.
Yeah,
So
because
I don't.
we did the same thing, right? We did a high value shot
Correct.
was required before retrieving your gear from the trunk, which is pretty commonplace at this match year over year. Is these high value shots so that you can then do something physical and not have to necessarily concern yourself as much with the 180, because if you sling the rifle and it slides back on your shoulder and breaks the 180, everyone knows it's a dead stick and the match won't be called at that point. But this is one of my favorite stages by far.
This was my worst stage by far. I went first on this one, and I didn't think I'm going to say gamer it. Not that you guys were gamering it, but my brain was like, okay, I have to throw my plate carrier all the way on, and I had to take my ears off to do that because it was a snug fit. I took my glasses off to do it. So I spent way too much time fiddling with my gear when I easily could have just thrown the plate carrier, hooked an arm through it. Same thing with the belt, threw that on haphazardly and went. So I think I was at like the bottom quarter for this one because I went first and I just didn't think to how to do it efficiently.
Yeah. I gamered the crap out of it. I literally just threw everything over my shoulder and shot the shot the stage.
I wish I'd have done.
Yeah, this is one of those things where I think, having gamer things a little bit more, you definitely would have got more time off of your like overall time. And it's one of those things like looking back, if I were to do this again, in the spirit of the whole thing, there are always gonna like your first, second, third people, but you're gonna have to gamer stuff to really get at the top scores, right? So thinking about how you're gonna don your equipment and really thinking through that is gonna save you a lot of time. For sure. I'm kind of like mixed on this stage. Again, I had a mic, so I kind of a little dumber, made it not like dimmed the stage value for me a little bit. But I feel like there's a few more things they could have done on the stage to make it a little bit more interesting. But again, not an overly complex stage either. So it was, no, it was all right.
I thought the paper was kind of an interesting twist because you just had to make it on there. I think they weren't picky about where.
Right. Yeah. It was, I guess, 6 hits. Every target had to have 6 hits. Or 4 hits. Was it 2 shots or 3 shots?
I think it was 4. It was 2 shots. And then you had your bonus shot could be on any one of them, and then it would just count towards if you got like a total of 4.
Yeah. So one target needed to have 5, and the rest needed 4 hits.
All right. Moving to stage 8 then, and our first stage that we started with for the whole thing was called the Great Yomp. Kyle, first I'm going to have you, well, actually, what is a Great Yomp? What is a yomp?
A yomp is like a hike.
Oh, I have no idea.
It's a British term.
It's a British term for a hike. Like a ruck march.
We beat those guys in the Revolutionary War, so whatever.
Yeah, but but Ian is a man is a cultured man, so he uses strange slang sometimes.
That's fair. All right, so break down the great yomp for us.
Yeah,
Kyle.
so this is our first stage, and unfortunately, this is when I found out my my laser head decided to permanently zero itself to the next zip code. But we started with a 60-pound rucksack on. Whether you're running armored TST or not, every single competitor wore it. So the armored guys got a little bit of the shaft on this one more than the rest of us because you're already carrying extra weight. But we then had to maneuver through about knee-high tripwires, which is about ankle height for Phil. But they were attached to a shotgun blank, and if you tripped one of those, you were done for the stage. It was a stage ending penalty. That that's probably the only other real complaint I have with this match as a whole. The one being the having 2 prop guns for the trench stage, and then having a penalty that occurs so early in a stage that you actually don't get to shoot the stage at all that you've paid to come out and shoot. Luckily, none of us tripped it. No one in our squad tripped it. I believe only one person did trip it in the entire event. But that extra layer of stress there was a little frustrating for me. So then, once you maneuvered through these tripwires, you ran around the side of the bay where you were then able to load your rifle, and also on the pack was a radio. And you ran to the first prop out of 6. There's 7 props total. You ran to the center 7th prop, and then you had 3 in front of you and 3 behind you. Once you hit both targets at about 75 yards, I think these were our longest shots we had in the match. About 75-yard shots. An observer would call your next position for you to run to and repeat those 2 shots. I think you did that for a total of 4 positions after the first, so 5 total.
Yep.
So a little bit of randomness to it. Again, kind of getting into a little bit of that competitive equity thing. Kind of hard to do when you have a stage that's randomized so much and you don't shoot every position. But it's again, pretty straightforward stage. I think I would have enjoyed it more if I didn't have to shoot it passive. If I was able to shoot it with my laser, I think I would have had a little bit quicker time and been a little bit happier with my run. But I was able to complete it under par, even shooting through my optic. What'd you guys think, Casey?
I think this was a really good wake-up stage for a lot of people, being the first stage. I had some user-induced errors going into it, so I'm really happy that I finished it in general. I had somehow put the battery into my optic backwards, and so as we were going up there to get ready and gear up, I was like, hey, I can't see anything down there. That's okay. I've still got my lamp set up. And apparently I did not do a super adequate job with setting up my lamb, so when I aimed 6 o'clock at the bottom of the target, I was getting hits. But I think I spent a good 45 seconds sitting there saying, what if I shoot a little bit to the left? What if I shoot a little bit to the right? Trying to like Kentucky windage in my target and find where I actually needed to shoot. And so I think a lot of people actually in our squad struggled with this one, not for the technicality of it, but for I was not as prepared as I needed to be. Um, the ruck absolutely sucked because that was some real slippery mud, and that was on top of the 30 pounds I was already wearing. But once I got into the rhythm of it, it was pretty good. There was one position that seemed worse than the other ones, and so I'm glad I didn't get that where you had to like crawl up on some pallets. But it was pretty straightforward, and once we got cooking, it was okay. I liked it.
Phil, what was your takeaway?
For me, for this one, I think it was a good starting like course of fire, because the pack definitely threw you off, especially if you're running armored. And then both Casey and I, you put it on, and then it's like not only do you get the extra weight, but it's like really pinning your shoulders. My shoulder had been boo-hoo mama, like really bruised, but just I guess to point out like how like tight that was on, and it pushes out past the back of your armor. So it definitely makes it a little bit unbalanced. I did have to go on top of the pallets. I didn't find that too bad because again, I am a very tall individual, and just stepping up there was like literally like walking up a stair. So not too bad. And then again, like for those of us who are a little bit taller, a little bit heavier, that weight is a smaller percentage of our total body weight. So we're kind of used to carrying a little bit more of that weight, though it was definitely a hindrance for sure. The targets weren't too bad to see. I was really happy, like to start off and kind of give you a little bit of like confidence. I know you guys had like aiming problems. My laser was fine. It's not like a hit or anything, but it's just like one of those things where I've not done this as much as you guys have. So just getting a little bit of confidence off the start of this beginning first stage was a big help. But this is when I kind of realized that having higher gain night vision was a bit of an advantage, because some of those targets that you had to run to from like one of the bay to the other, if you didn't have supplemental light, you're like, I don't see what you're talking about, sir. Please point it out to me and tell me where to go.
Yeah. Yeah. The having the IR light, if my laser had been dead totally, I would not have been able to even complete one
Right.
round on this stage. The Photonus is a great monocle for the suburban environment that I live in. It's not a deep woods optic at all. It just doesn't do well in that environment.
No, that's okay. I mean, it's just, it is what it is, right? It's an equipment
Yeah.
race, and we made the decision to run the match with our Photonus Echo,
Yep.
tubes, and
Yep.
for the most part, it was fine. I think, again, had the moon been out, that would not have been an issue at all, because those things get like any kind of night vision, like maybe except for Gen 1, like Gen 2 and above, just like, well, moon's out, like no problem, you're gonna see stuff pretty easy.
Yeah. All right.
But a great stage to kind of start on.
Yeah. A
But
very straightforward, kind of simple stage. Not a lot of complexity to it, but it
yeah.
was good.
Stage 9, Casey, take us through the Crazy.
Crazy.
Crazy Gazarda.
Is it Crazy? Crazy with
Crazy.
a K and a S? All right.
Crazy Casarda.
This was one of the more straightforward stages and also by far the most challenging. And I kind of have mixed feelings about getting it out of the way early because, on one hand, we were done with it. We didn't have to kind of like dread it for the rest of the night. But on the other hand, this was a gasser. So we were handed I believe, 60-pound kettlebell.
Yes.
And as far as the bay was, I think every about 10 yards, they had a 2x4 laid on the ground. And the way this worked was you pick up your kettlebell and you would go between the legs, old granny style, and throw it. And you had to run up to wherever it landed, take a knee, take a shot, and then pick it back up and continue to go. And this was physically demanding for sure.
Yeah, this is another one of those par stages where you had to do it for the full 4 minutes.
I think, like I told somebody, the good news is it's only going to suck for 4 minutes.
Yes.
And it was every time you pass those 2x4s, you got a 5-second bonus. So you were incentivized to do that. And we were day one, second stage. Everyone was raring to go. Everyone was ready to put in some work. And this was an absolute gasser. And the shooting part wasn't difficult. It was being able to control your breath and doing it with armor and everything got to be a lot. I think, Bill, didn't you actually lead the squad with that one for 12?
Yeah, I think so. And being done with that and getting 12, I was like, man, I felt pretty good about that. But again, just completely gassed out after that. And Casey and I, again, huge advantage. I think you had 11 right next to me. And I think you gave me, because you went before I didn't, gave me some kind of tips on when to let the kettlebell go, help it roll. Again, mechanical advantage, being taller, you just that if you swing it, it's gonna take you maybe a little longer to swing it just because of the distance and everything. But when you let that thing go, it's going at a lot higher like velocity in theory, and then a lot higher up off the ground. So huge advantage to us tall kings.
Yeah.
But a good stage. And yeah, and I knew we were gonna get a Casarda stage because they always do them at the brutality / moons out matches. So you're gonna expect it. But again, to Casey's point, having it on stage 2, part of me was like, hey, it's good to get it out of the way for the night. But then you're like, oh, no, I'm exhausted for the next, like, this stage and then the next 3 stages after. But all good. I used a bipod on this. I don't know if it really helped with like keeping the rifle. I think if it had not rained and the ground itself was harder, and then because the rifle was kind of prone to tipping even with a bipod, and maybe putting the rifle down in the mud or whatever would have been a little bit faster. But it was just an option I chose to make. Again, I have no idea. The top finisher on this did 18 of like the sticks, which is
what a monster.
I know, and absolutely insane. Like they must have been hauling the whole time. Absolutely.
Just in much better shape than I.
Right. Same. Yep.
So Phil,
right,
take us home. Take us home for stage 10.
Yeah, stage 10 was one of these stages where you're like, all right, this match is awesome. Because again, with the first two stages that we ran for us, like, okay, there's some fun elements in here. The radio was kind of cool on stage 1. We knew the Xardra was going to happen. But stage 2 or stage 10 was called the Crack House. And for everybody, I pretty much think on the squad, this was their favorite stage of night 1, right? It's like, how do you top something like this? But what you did is you started on this stage, and they had a huge, like, I don't know, what would you call it, like a wedding tent almost that you would see at.
It's an old army tent, is what
Okay.
it is. Yeah, like an entire platoon to sleep in.
Yeah, so quite long. You're not talking like I'm going camping tent. You're talking like I said, like a platoon tent, right? It would sleep like a bunch of guys if you had to.
30 guys could sleep in this thing comfortably with cots.
Yep. So you start the stage out, and they're like, hey, when you go into the stage, there are shoot targets, there are no shoot targets, and then there's a Fed finder.
What's a Fed finder? You'll find out.
We're like, what's the Fed finder? Like, yeah, you'll figure it out when you go through. And we're like, okay. And they didn't really make it overly clear what you were supposed to shoot and not supposed to shoot. And again, you're under nods, so you're like, well, am I shooting like the brown targets and not the white targets, which is traditional that like set up in USPSA style match, or is there something else denoting it? Are they wearing or carrying certain things? Like, you don't know, whatever. Anyway, but you start off the stage, you are given a flashbang. That's like an impact flashbang. So you kick the door in, which is number one, awesome anytime you start a stage by kicking a door into the crack house. Then you pull the pin on the flashbang, throw it in. I think everybody the flashbang went off for. As long as you hit like a surface with it, it went off. Flashbang goes off, and then you basically have to shoot targets as they or make themselves available in front of you. The shoot house had like kind of basic rooms that you kind of had to like shoot in and around, and they would hide targets a little bit. But the targets that you had to shoot were reduced size USPSA targets. And they were, so you kind of figure out pretty quick what you weren't supposed to shoot. There were a few mannequins in there and stuff that you weren't supposed to shoot. But basically anything that was a paper reduced USPSA sized target you had to shoot. So again, double tap every target. I think was that right?
Yep. Two hits.
Yep. Okay. 2 hits to every target as you're going through the shoot house, making sure that you're checking in all the nooks and crannies as you go through. Like super fun. You kind of had to like duck around a few things, while you're going through the house. All the targets that you had to shoot were in the direction of the back berm again. So no real fear of like accidentally shooting somebody on the side of it. Once you emerged from the shoot house, there was another set of 5 steel targets at the end that you had to engage with 1 shot each. I think a couple of them were poppers that you had to knock over. Is that right?
I think they were just floating pie. So.
Yeah.
Okay. But again, shoot the steel targets. This stage, just super fun, very much like something you would see, other than the fact that it was in like, I could see a stage like this being made out of barricades for like a USPSA match, because you're a lot of shooting on the move, and then shooting at smaller targets as you like step out into the open, right?
Yeah.
So again, between kicking down the door, throwing in a flashbang, shooting targets within a house, and then ending up outside the house shooting targets, was a lot of fun. And then the Fed Finder, I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, but it was a stuffed cop dog. Paw Patrol, I think it was. Is the dog from Paw Patrol?
I think so. I couldn't tell under nods, but I just saw that it was a dog.
I saw the hat, and I saw that it was stuffed and smaller, but they put it between 2 of the USPSA targets. Anyway, so I did a ton of fun, just like something that you wouldn't normally shoot. Even during the day, it probably would have been fun. But your guys' thoughts on this stage?
Yeah. Go ahead, Casey.
I think this perfectly encapsulated the motto of our squad bomb. Like this stage just felt like that. I don't know if we all just want to say it on 3 or something, but
yeah. Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, brother.
Every stage, everything. Hell yeah, brother. But that's
Hell yeah,
exactly
brother.
what this stage felt like to me. You kick down a door, you flashbang something. I've never gotten to do that before. That's pretty cool. And then because of how they had it laid out, you were going from left to right. So being left-handed, I had to tuck my stock up over my shoulder and kind of do like the cool guy SEAL Team 6 looking thing where you're just cruising with the laser doing everything, and it just felt like the coolest stage ever. They put a lot of small attention to detail in there. Like it was not a straight line through there, so you would
Hmm.
still have to watch where you were going and back up and everything. So I thought this was extremely well done. It was fun. You could move. It was dynamic. This was my favorite stage overall, I think, with the shoot house and all that coming very close second. But this was just hell yeah, brother.
Kyle, thoughts on this stage?
Yeah, this was a great stage. The the ingenuity of having it inside of a tent that you're then just shooting down range through. I felt bad because I'm sure that eventually this tent will not be usable anymore because it'll have so many
No.
holes in it. But it was yeah, just a really, again, simple stage, straightforward, but just a lot of fun. Breaching door, throwing a banger in, burning through targets, and then coming out to blast some steel. It was just a lot of fun. A great stage for the middle of our evening.
Yeah, again, just like we said, this is one of the stages where it's just like you kind of sets the tone for the rest of the match. You're like, okay, this is pretty cool. There's a bunch of stuff. We knew that like the shoe house was coming up. We knew that the trenches were coming up. We knew the Humvee was coming up. We're like, man, the fact that you're able to do this in such a simple bay, of all things, was pretty sweet. All right, so just a few of the match highlights. Casey, I know you said this was your favorite stage. Kyle, what was your favorite stage overall?
It's really hard to pick. The Hesco shoot house was just a lot of fun for me, just being a very kind of traditional stage. Um, the Humvee stage, though, I think still probably takes it for me. Just being able to go full, you know, chimpanzee on 5 targets while bouncing around in the back of a Humvee was just a lot of fun.
Casey, I know you kind of highlighted the trench, the shoot, the wow, I can't talk, the crack house being your favorite stage, but any other kind of stages that were high up there for you?
I think the like Kyle said, the riding in the back of the Humvee, I felt really bad for the RO because he was riding in that thing all night, and the Hesco shoot house because I'd never done anything past a standard 180 USPSA stage. So being able to just haul going, take a left, take a right, take a left through there was just a really unique experience. And it was really cool and super stoked to be able to do stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I'll echo you guys too. My favorite stage was definitely the Humvee stage, just because it's so rare that you get to ever do something like that, and it's very rare that you have a stage that is that long, like distance wise, right? The fact that you can be in a Humvee going through a stage, have enough time to be able to shoot multiple targets on each end. That RO, props that RO, like you said, being in the back there, bump around all night.
Yeah.
Guy was night two for us on that stage, still super positive, like really helpful through the whole stage. Like, hey, look right, look left. Like, if you can't see the target on your right at the end, which we ran into, just to shoot around off, just so you don't have to get like a penalty on this. Again, having a D60, like, why would you ever need one of those? Because of this stage is why you
Yeah.
need a D60,
Yeah.
right? Like, it gives you a reason. There are stages that gives you a reason to buy things. This was definitely one of them, right?
I'm buying it
And as such, I
60 after
bought a
that.
D60 just for this stage. That's like the only reason I own one. Because I knew from years past that people were using D60s on a variant of this stage. Again, any match that makes you buy something, as weird as it sounds, always a great thing. One thing I want to call out, and I'll let you guys kind of take this to start. And Casey, I think I'll let you because you pointed this out as we were kind of getting ready for this episode. But the match staff was phenomenal. So, Casey, you want to kind of talk about the match staff in general, and then talk about our squad mom, Adrian.
Yeah, so they had dedicated ROs at every stage, which was great because everybody at that stage was insanely knowledgeable. They kind of figured out the inner workings of the stage, especially as the nights went on, with like how to adapt it for, hey, there's literally 8 inches of water at the bottom of this. Don't go in there. So I think everybody there was great. I think everybody was kind of the same attitude of, you guys paid a lot of money to come do this. I want you to have the most fun as possible. And there were no massive prizes. We can talk about the raffle after. Loved that, but everyone there was kind of for bragging rights if you wanted to be super competitive. And I think everybody else was just saying, I want you guys to have the best time you can. How do I facilitate that? And they did a really good job of just saying, for especially for the Humvee stage, they gave a super serious, I'm driving a Humvee blacked out. You do not cross the road. You will stay here until this person says you're allowed to move. So the ROs were super well coordinated and everything like that. And then we had a dedicated stage mom, Adrian, who was absolutely the best.
Adrian.
And he kept everything moving in the best way possible. He made the experience. I think he kind of like got everybody out of, hey, this is a serious match, to have some fun. He was teaching me some things about shooting and moving after one of the stages. He loaned his rifle out. He loaned his tubes out to somebody else on the last stage. Cannot say enough good things about the experience I had there.
Yeah. Yeah, the staff at matches can really make or break it a lot of times. We've all had experience with a crusty RO that you just can't wait to be done with the stage. And we didn't have any of that here. Everybody was super accommodating, like Casey said, really friendly, would, you know, they had, so they had enough ROs for every stage that we didn't have to reset. I mean, not having to reset on a stage is such a luxury that most competitors don't ever get to experience, because that's something you're always expected to do, and you didn't have to. At most, you would have to, you know, bring a bin back up to the squad area, something easy, but you're not going down pasting targets, slomping through resetting steel in the mud. It's just show up and shoot, have a good time, test your gear, test yourself, and yeah, it was great.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the challenges that we ran into with, again, the rain, the fog, um, the physicality of it. But if you think of the ROs, they had to deal with all of that, have a positive attitude, and be safe with everyone at the same time, plus resetting stages.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that speaks volumes to the character of all of the ROs in the One Shepherd group that was involved with ROing the whole match. One Shepherd, I think, is a lot about leadership. I will say they did a really good job with leadership, and it showed. They're like Adrian, again, fantastic example of never complained, was super cheerful, very helpful, constantly. Like he was carrying like Gatorades around for everybody. Like, how you guys doing? You want a Gatorade? I got Gatorade for you. And then like, kind of helping out with the stages here and there as well, making sure that we were all safe the whole time. Really, really awesome individuals running this whole thing. Kyle, I want you to talk a little bit about our squad and how that also kind of reflected and made this an enjoyable event.
Yeah, we had a really fantastic group of guys. We were on a little bit of the lighter side. We only had 9 instead of, I think, 10 was the average. So we were missing one. Just made us get through the stages a little quicker. But yeah, everybody was super friendly, uh, super willing to help out. We had, more than one occasion, guys had gear go down, gun go down, laser go down, and always the group was always ready to step up and say, "Oh, hey, I got a backup rifle," or "Hey, I got an extra lamb," "Oh, hey, I got batteries," "Hey, I got extra ammo." Um, nobody in our squad was there to try to get the trophy and try to, make sure they climbed over top of their squad mates to get it. Uh, just also the same kind of thing with, the ROs make the match. Your squad makes it a great experience too, and nobody was crusty or ill-tempered or overly arrogant. We all have our egos that we like to try to stroke every once in a while, but they yeah, just a good group of guys that were really enjoyable to be around for a good match.
Yeah, and I think as well, every one of them understood the rules that were set forth for like the match and followed them really well. Like things like, hey, I gotta go potty, I gotta go leave where the squad is. Yes, I said potty. I have kids. Um, but like they would ask, like, check in with Adrian, and then he would like, hey, go over here, if you got to go to the bathroom, whatever. And it was just, it made the whole experience like nobody was arguing. And then because as soon as somebody starts arguing with the RO or the squad mom, things can just like go downhill and sour things with the squad mom. Though I think it'd be hard to get Adrian down, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so just kind of wrapping things up here with a few lessons that were learned. If you're going to go into this match, again, this is my third time shooting under nods. Practice like weird positions, especially up against barricades, through portholes, bent over, kneeling, prone, whatever it may be. If you're going to shoot a match like this, practice those things that if you've shot matches before, maybe straightforward, you're like, shoot through barricades all the time. Practice those under nods because it's different. And getting your tube lined up, to be able to look down and see your laser, or if you're shooting passive to see through your optic. That's just a whole nother thing. Gear wise too, I don't think I would change anything other than, obviously, like I had a single, monocular. Maybe having duals would have been fun too, but I'm not going to complain. Again, we live in the richest country in the world, and the fact that I can even afford one, I'm very, very happy about that fact. So I guess, Casey, any specific lessons that you would impart to other people that would want to shoot this match? And then gear wise, any comments?
I think the biggest thing that I focused on, and I feel like I focused on the right thing, is being able to do simple weapon manipulations during the daytime is automatic. You don't even have to think about it. You just grab the rifle and go. At night, are you sure you loaded around? Can you look in the chamber and see it? Can you press check and see anything? Can you reload? I was actually doing my reloads completely differently. Usually, I'll leave the rifle up in the shooting position and just hit the reload like that. But because I couldn't see anything, I was tucking the stock under my armpit and then kind of moving my trigger finger out to the very edge of the mag well to kind of give myself an index of that's where I need to aim to basically get my index fingers to meet. So I think just training stuff like that and being able to do simple things really well is going to give you a huge advantage in something like this. Gear, I wish I would have moved my dump pouch up a little bit because they were allowing, or every mag left behind was a 60-second penalty. And so I think that having a better understanding of where that was, I've only used it like after a stage. But besides that, I think gear worked pretty well.
Nice. Kyle, same question to you. What advice would you give somebody wanting to shoot this match? And then what gear worked well for you? Any
Yeah,
gear comments?
I mean, Casey stole my thunder on the having everything be automatic and changing stuff up in the dark. But shooting, moving, just being able to move smoothly through, under nods is gonna really help you out. Um, a lot of movement in these stages. I think, very rarely were we shooting for long periods of time just standing in one position. Uh, so, shooting on the move combined with just being able to navigate around and do tasks while wearing nods is going to help you out. Um, and then gear, I think I wish I had a little bit more of a powerful laser. The LS321 is a really good laser, but it doesn't have a good. It's just not quite punchy enough. So I think something like a Maul, or maybe like the Iris or something like that, that's just got a little bit better feature set to it, um, would be better if I were to shoot this match again.
I've shot a mall compared to an iris, and I think the iris is about 80% as good for 1/3 of the price for what that's worth.
Well, that's a ringing endorsement.
Yeah. Props to Hollow Sun for making everything awesome and affordable.
Yeah.
So all right. So wrapping this up again, huge thanks to again the match staff, Ian from coming up with this idea, with Jeremy doing the work, Les Winner for putting a lot of the stages together, the whole squad team that put these matches together. They work on this thing for like 8 months in advance, designing stages, testing stages. They make multiple trips to this location.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously there were some challenges with like the trench stages, but it's hard to predict some of those things, right? And there's going to be a few things that are going to be, a challenge or whatever. But when like 95+% of your things work out well, I mean, I think you've run a good match, especially with people involved. The prize table was phenomenal. This is the best prize table I've ever seen at a match, and I probably even compared. Kyle, you've done a few. You did that USPSA Nationals. I don't know how that prize table compared to this prize table, but
the prize table at Nationals is pretty good, but the problem is you have 400 people going through it
right.
in the order they finished. So your
No.
top shooters get all the good stuff. Your guys that are just showing up to shoot, they go home with like a pistol case.
Yeah. In this case, it was random draw, which is fantastic. Again, encourages, more camaraderie, like we talked about. Nobody's trying to crawl over someone else or like trying to, get them down so they do worse on a stage, right? If you win first, second, or third in your division and then won first place overall, you get like a cool 3D printed trophy, which definitely cool. And then bragging rights, props to those individuals who won. But again, it's a random draw, and there were 2 Q rifles. I think it was just fantastic, super high end rifles. Springfield donated a PCC and a rifle, and then Lima
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 6.
6, right?
Yeah.
They donated, I think it was an upper, one of their belt feds uppers, which I mean, that's so cool. I think Casey, you walked away with an optic.
Yep, I got an Aimpoint Pro out of it.
And then
Awesome.
Kyle and I walked out with some triggers. So some really nice triggers. We'll leave it at that. Again, and just fantastic. And I think like you got called right before me, Kyle. And I think I was called like 50th. And when I went up there were still like Vortex binoculars, body armor with plates, like all this stuff that was still out there. Everybody walked away with something that was pretty nice. And I think in general, the table, on average, everybody walked away with what their fee was to get into the match. So again, appreciate all the sponsors that kicked up really fantastic prizes for this match. Again, I think a lot of that is like Ian's work that he does in the back end with Jeremy to secure those sponsors. He does a good job of advertising for the sponsors, which I think encourages them to donate some really nice items to the prize table. So if you want to go to this match, by all means, if you shot under nods and definitely shot competitively, I wouldn't do this as a first match. In general, I think it's probably okay, since I think for some of us, actually all 3 of us, I think this is our first night vision match.
Yep.
No, I've shot a couple night vision matches, but none this big.
Okay. Casey, I think this was your first as well, right?
Yep.
Doable. Obviously, we finished safely through it, but make sure you've got match experience before going into something like this. But by all means, if you've got the equipment, do so, and would encourage you to get in if you can. It's sold out really fast.
Yeah,
I think they said a minute.
Yeah, I luckily was able to shoot this. Jordan, one of the organizers, was very gracious in resending a wait list, because I was waitlisted on the first round. Got an email that there was a slot. Unfortunately, I didn't see the email for several days, and missed the opportunity. But thankfully, he reached back out again when there was another slot available, and I was able to get in.
Yeah, and 100% would shoot this match again. It was extremely enjoyable. I mean, it's a long trip from Michigan. Like I know, Kyle, you were kind of already out there. Casey and I split the drive out. 2 days and then drove it all the way back after being exhausted. But it's not a bad drive, and it's pretty straightforward. So again, if you're in the area, why not? If you're driving a little bit, also why not?
Yeah, I mean, even the ROs are driving. Adrian's
right.
from Florida.
Yeah. He had been up there for multiple days and had to be there even a day after we left.
Yep.
With that, any additional closing comments, Casey or Kyle?
Oh, I think we pretty much hit all the points.
I think we did.
Yeah, this was a great match.
Yeah, a fantastic match. Again, thanks for everyone that stuck it out. Again, this 10 stages to go through and kind of cover that, and hopefully we're able to give you good flavor of what this match was like, and gave you something to keep you entertained and engaged while you're driving in your car, doing housework, whatever. Maybe shooting a match too, listening between stages. That's great. With that, we invite you to. What's that?
That'd be some dedication.
That'd be some dedication. With that, we invite you to subscribe to the podcast, like, comment on any of our posts regarding it. You can find us on any of your favorite platforms. We're literally on everything. Again, thank you for those that joined through the Firearms Radio Network. Again, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Email us at podcast@acceptableaccuracy.com. With any additional questions you may have on the match, we will gladly respond to you on those. And from here, I guess that's it, and we'll see you all later.